It's the beginning of October in 1985. Let's jump right into the music. At number 40, we've got Corey Hart, Boy in the Box. This is the title track to his second album, well, Boy in the Box. The first release off this album was Never Surrender. We all love that. This was the second release. We didn't really love this one so much. In fact, we didn't really like anything else Corey Hart ever did. But Sunglasses at Night and Never Surrender will go down in 80s history as some of the best. 39, David Foster, The Love Theme from St. Elmo's Fire. It's an instrumental love theme and it made it all the way up the charts to number 15. That's kind of weird. At 38, we've got the Hart sisters, Ann and Nancy Wilson. The song is Never. It followed What About Love on the release schedule, and both of them made it into the top 10. It was the first time Hart had consecutive top 10 hits. The next song they released was These Dreams. That made it there too. Pretty good run for the Wilson sisters. At 37, we've got the Power Station with Communication. The Power Station had Robert Palmer as the lead singer and the guitar players from Duran Duran backing him up. This song made it to number 34. At 36, we've got Freddie Jackson with You Are My Lady. This is just one of those forgettable tunes that was on the radio in the background when we were kids. Freddie Jackson did have some pretty great songs, including my favorite one, She's Not a Sleaze. 35, Pat Benetar, Invincible. It's the theme from Billie Jean. Pat Benetar was nominated for a Grammy for this song. Holly Knight was the co-writer. She co-wrote, obviously, this, Ragdoll by Aerosmith, Love is a Battlefield, even Scandal's The Warrior. Holly Knight was awesome. 34, one of my favorite 80s bands, the Thompson Twins. There weren't any twins in the band. They were named after a comic strip in England. Lay Your Hands on Me is the third of the big 4 hits for the Thompson Twins. Hold Me Now, Doctor Doctor, this one, and then King for a Day. At 33, we've got the Hooters, And We Danced. They didn't really make it big like a lot of other awesome bands in the 80s. They did get to play this one on Live Aid though. Other than being in the Hooters, singer-songwriter Rob Hyman did some songwriting on the side. He wrote Time After Time for Cyndi Lauper. 32, Glen Frey, You Belong to the City. This is a great tune. This is one you crank up and sing and love. Glen Frey was easily the best of the Eagles. This song was specifically written for Miami Vice. It ended up as number 1 on the Billboard Rock Chart and number 2 on the Hot 100. Glen Frey plays all the instruments except the drums and the sax. 31 was Starship with We Built This City. At 30, we've got Bryan Adams, another one of my favorites. One Night Love Affair was the 5th of 6 songs released off that Reckless album. It's the only one that they didn't make a music video for. Don't know why they didn't do that, but it did appear with Val Kilmer in Real Genius. 29, Don Henley, the other big deal from the Eagles. Not that Joe Walsh wasn't a big deal, but I mean, Don Henley and Glen Frey were the 2 biggest deals. Sunset Grill is another great song off that Build a Perfect Beast album. The harmony vocals on this were done by Patti Smith, who sang Warrior for Scandal. The synthesizer arrangement on this was put together by Randy Newman. This song had to be good. Number 28, ABC with Be Near Me. 27, Paul Young. No, not that song, the other Paul Young song. It's called I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down. It's a cover of an early 70s soul tune by Earl Randall. It was recorded by Ann Peebles in 1972. I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down ended up becoming a worldwide hit. At 26, we've got Huey Lewis with The Power of Love. This has to be my favorite 80s soundtrack song. Spielberg went to Huey Lewis and asked him to write a song for Back to the Future. Huey Lewis did not want to write a song called Back to the Future, so Spielberg told him, you can write it about whatever you want and I'll put it in the film. The next time you're listening to The Power of Love by Huey Lewis, pay close attention to the lyrics. It has nothing to do with Back to the Future. 25 was John Waite, Every Step of the Way. John Waite had that one huge song a couple of years before this, Missing You. You know it, you know all the words, and you probably love it. You can't say you're a failure if you got a song at number 25 on the charts, but that's about as far as it was gonna go. At 24, we've got Hall & Oates. It's a chart from the 80s, so there has to be Hall & Oates on it. It's The Way You Do the Things You Do and My Girl. But Paul, those are Temptation songs. I know they're Temptation songs. In fact, 2 of the Temptations sang on this song for Hall & Oates' album Live at the Apollo. They performed it at Live Aid as well. At 23, we've got Night Ranger with 4 in the Morning. That Seven Wishes album is pretty good. It also has Sentimental Street and Goodbye. The song 4 in the Morning doesn't really have much to do with 4 in the morning, but Jack Blades wrote it at 4 in the morning. So he decided to put that phrase in it, and that became the name of the song. 22, Tina Turner, We Don't Need Another Hero. This is from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. That's a great movie too. Tina's all jazzed up in this video with her Auntie Entity gear, which just makes you want to watch Beyond Thunderdome again. Terry Britton co-wrote this song and earned nominations at the Golden Globes and at the Grammys. He didn't win for that. He did win, however, for the other song he wrote with Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do With It? At 21, it's Prince with Pop Life. It's the second release off his Around the World in a Day album. 20, Tears for Fears, Head Over Heels. This is my favorite song off the Songs from the Big Chair album. What do you mean it's your favorite song off Songs from the Big Chair? What about Shout? What do you mean it's your favorite song off the Big Chair album? What about Everybody Wants to Rule the World? Fine. All three songs are great. I love them all. Head Over Heels doesn't stand out with any big message behind it. It's just kind of an easy to sing love song. It made it up to number 3. Number 19, Loverboy, loving every minute of it. They had written the entire album and they looked down at what they had and decided they didn't have a big hit. They did what anybody does when they really need a big hit. They called Mutt Lange. Mutt Lange, loving every minute of it, ended up being Loverboy's only top 10 hit. What about Working for the Weekend, you ask? That only got to number 29. It became popular later. At 18, we've got C.I.T.Y. by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. C.I.T.Y. is about as fun as you can get with rock and roll. Crank it and sing that one all night long. It'll get you moving in your seat. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band spent a lot of time chasing the success of their previous big hit, On the Dark Side. This one got to number 17. It ended up being their second best performer on the Billboard Top 100. At 17, we've got the Pointer Sisters with Dare Me. This one reached number 11 on the charts. They made 2 videos for this song, the censored and the uncensored. Both of them featured women wrestling. In the uncensored version, the women rip each other's bikinis off. I wonder which one of those videos is better. 16, Godley and Cream with Cry. That song sucks. At 15, we've got John Parr with St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion. You ever pay attention to those lyrics and wonder, what the heck is he talking about? What does a man in motion and set of wheels have to do with St. Elmo's Fire? Well, you're probably thinking about that now, and I'm going to tell you. When they were struggling to write the lyrics for this, John Parr read an article in the newspaper, about a wheelchair athlete who was going around the world to raise awareness for spinal injuries. He was a man in motion on a set of wheels. It entered the song. That song's great. St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion is loaded with big names. The backing vocals are done by Richard Page, who's the lead singer for Mr. Mister. David Page, who seems to be in just about everything from the 80s, one of those guys from Toto's. Also, the 2 Steves from Toto are involved in this. And Dave Amato, who's the lead guitarist from REO Speedwagon. So you got Mr. Mister, Toto, and REO Speedwagon backing up the Man in Motion. No wonder this is such a great song. 14, The Boss. Bruce Springsteen with I'm Going Down. Springsteen released 7 songs off the Born in the USA album. It wasn't going to make it on this album either, but they decided to replace Pink Cadillac with this. Pink Cadillac ended up on the B-side for Dancing in the Dark. 13, Jan Hammer, the theme from Miami Vice. TV theme songs on the charts. They don't even have TV theme songs anymore, but we certainly did in the 80s, and this one's awesome. As soon as it starts, you know what's going on. You see the flamingos and you're just waiting for that guitar to get started. It went all the way up to number 1. At 12, we've got Sting with Fortress Around Your Heart. Sting writes a lot of songs from the pain of relationships. It's the second song released off the Dream of the Blue Turtles album. Love is the Seventh Wave was the first song off that album. Fortress Around Your Heart ended up being number 1 on the rock charts, which is really weird because this sure as hell's not a rock song. At 11, we've got Phil Collins, Don't Lose My Number. According to Phil Collins, not that I talked to him last week about this, the lyrics actually don't mean anything. He was just improvising and following a little bit of a story in his head, and that's what came out. It's the second song released off of the No Jacket Required album. Number 10, a super fun 80s tune, Stevie Wonder, Part-Time Lover. The story behind it, the meaning isn't super fun, but this song is just fun to play and it's fun to sing along to. At this point in time, we're at number 10. It ends up being number 1, not only on the Billboard Hot 100, but also on the R&B charts, the dance charts, and the adult contemporary. Stevie Wonder was the first artist to hit number 1 with one song on all those charts at the same time. The background vocals were done by Luther Vandross. Number 9, David Bowie, Mick Jagger, Dancing in the Streets. So many people have done Dancing in the Streets, but in the 80s, this was our version of it. And it's a really good tune. As soon as it came on and they're yelling out the names of the countries, you knew what was going on. They wanted to do this for Live Aid, and have one guy in Wembley and the other guy at JFK. But because of the satellite link-up issues, there was going to be a slight delay, and there was no way they could do it without having one guy lip sync. And they both said there's no way they're going to do that. They ended up releasing it later, and all the proceeds went to the charity. Good deal for the charity, because this song hit #1. It also proved that David Bowie is way cooler than Mick Jagger. Number 8, John Cougar Mellencamp, Lonely Old Night. This is probably my favorite John Cougar Mellencamp song. It's also my favorite John Cougar song, and also my favorite John Mellencamp song. At this point in time, he was still John Cougar Mellencamp. He wasn't completely John Mellencamp, but wasn't completely done with being John Cougar. It was the transition period for him. When they were filming the video, one of John, I'm going to call him John Mellencamp, the wife of one of John Mellencamp's friends told him he shouldn't cast a pretty girl as his girlfriend in this because she's not really indicative of a lonely night. He agreed with her and asked his friend to be in it instead. That's the girl you see playing his girlfriend in the video. That's cold, Johnny. Number 7, Wham! With Freedom. Careless Whisper came out. That was a big hit. They came out with Freedom after it. People went crazy for it because it was another Wham tune. Freedom is pretty forgettable. It does have something cool about it, though. The chorus is what's played on the organ at the beginning of George Michael's Faith. Now that's a tune that rocks. At 6, we've got Whitney Houston's Saving All My Love for You. It's a cover song. Originally, it was done by Marilyn McCoo, from Solid Gold. This historic song ended up being the first of 7 #1 hits for Whitney Houston. Talk about prolific. It was also her first Grammy for Best Female Pop Performance. At 5, we've got Madonna with Dress You Up. This was the last song released off the Like a Virgin album. They didn't even give it a video. They just had Madonna doing it live in concert, and they said, this is our video, and people loved it. It's more famous for being part of the Filthy 15. Remember when Congress decided that they were going to start slapping stickers on albums telling parents these songs have bad meanings and lyrics? Make sure you check the channel for the Filthy 15 video next week, because that one's going to be awesome. Unless you're watching this sometime way in the future. Then I did it a long time ago, and everybody loved it. At number 4, we've got a-ha with Take On Me. They've released this song in 1984, and it flopped. It didn't even hit the charts. Nobody liked it. So they revamped it, and they released it again with a different sort of arrangement, and it flopped again. But the producers knew they had something. Third time's a charm for a-ha. They released it again, but this time, they dumped a lot of money into making a video. MTV played the heck out of it. We all loved it. Now it's one of the greatest one-hit wonders, if not the greatest one-hit wonder ever. At number 3, it's Ready for the World with Oh Sheila. I always thought this was Prince. The dude singing it sounds like Prince. The synth pop funk certainly sounds like something Prince would do. And he had a girlfriend named Sheila at the time. It all makes sense, but it wasn't. They're called Ready for the World. There's a lot of English accent kind of going in and out on this one. These dudes are from Detroit. That's all fake. Number 2, Kool and the Gang with Cherish. Just like 1983's Joanna, this one got all the way up to number 2 and then got blocked. I'll tell you who's blocking this one in just a second. Both Cherish and Joanna got to number 2 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B. Kool and the Gang did have a number 1 song, of course. That's Celebration. Are you ready for the number 1 song from October of 1985? Because it's awesome. Here we go. It's Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. Mark Knopfler actually wrote this song in a department store. He's hanging out in a department store in New York City. He heard some of the maintenance guys complaining about things. And he looked over and those guys were watching MTV. Some of the lines in the song are directly from what these guys were saying. What's that, Hawaiian noises? That ain't working. Those are directly from the maintenance guy at the department store in New York City. On this week's playlist, I'm gonna put the live version from Live Aid. All right, let's check out the big screen for the beginning of October in 1985. There weren't that many big movies at the time, so I'm going to start at number 7, which was Teen Wolf. Now, I recently did a Michael J. Fox video, so I'm not going to repeat all the stuff in there. Make sure you find that Michael J. Fox video. There's some really interesting stuff about him in that. The 80s had a crazy obsession with werewolves. We've got Teen Wolf. There was Teen Wolf 2, of course, which was a bomb. Wolfen, The Howling Part 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. Full Moon High, The Company of Wolves, The Howling 3, Silver Bullet, and An American Werewolf in London. When he was filming Teen Wolf, they were filming Back to the Future down the street, and Michael J. Fox often was disappointed. He's down here playing a wolf kid while Steven Spielberg is filming up the road. Good news for Michael J. Fox. Steven Spielberg was disappointed that Michael J. Fox was down the road doing a wolf show. He's up here dealing with Eric Stoltz, who's no fun at all. Obviously, they worked that out. Teen Wolf came out after Back to the Future. Again, you can find out more on that in my Michael J. Fox video. In order to take advantage of the mania for Back to the Future, in Brazil, they named Teen Wolf Garoto do Futuro. That literally translates into Boy from the Future. It has nothing to do with Teen Wolf, but they call it that anyway to get people in the theater. In Spain, they were a little less dodgy, but it's still a cumbersome translation. It was called De Pelo en Pecho, which translates into hair on chest. I'll put a link to the Michael J. Fox video down below. At number 6, it's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I love this movie. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, for some reason, it always makes me laugh. Pee-wee's Big Adventure might be my most watched 80s movie. I'm sure that Jaws is from the 70s. Pee-wee's might be the one from the 80s. The professional James Bond P.W. Herman at the end is played by James Brolin. He almost got to play James Bond in real life. His character in this movie is a spoof on that. Also, James Brolin is Josh Brolin's dad, Josh's brand from the Goonies. Also, he's married to Barbara Streisand. Also, he used to be married to Jan Smithers. Who's Jan Smithers, you ask? It's Bailey Quarters from WKRP. James Brolin he's the man. At number 5, we've got Invasion USA starring Chuck Norris. As a rule, you never say anything bad about Chuck Norris or his movies, because he can hear you and he can hurt you. The communists are coming. It's 1985. Let's take advantage of all that communist fear. The communists in this movie land on the beaches of South Florida. Chuck Norris has to stop them. So he does. Good job, Chuck. This is your typical kicky, punchy, double Uzi, stuff blowing up Chuck Norris movie that really belongs in the circular file and out on the curb on a Wednesday morning. Because that's how bad of a movie it is, which of course means I love it, and if you haven't seen it, you gotta. Number 4, Back to the Future. As I mentioned before, I've got the Michael J. Fox video that's gonna go a little more in depth in Back to the Future than I'm gonna go now. But let's take a look at something you don't know. One executive at Universal wasn't so sure about Back to the Future as a title. For some reason, he thought people didn't want to see a movie with the word future in it. So he suggested something that he thought was much better. Spaceman from Pluto. Imagine if Back to the Future was called Spaceman from Pluto. Fortunately, that idea died a quick death. When Spielberg read it, he sent a note back and said, "That's a funny joke, keep them coming." It was never mentioned again. Number 3, Agnes of God. It's got Anne Bancroft and Meg Tilly. It's a neo-fantasy religion drama something. At the Golden Globes, Anne Bancroft was nominated for Best Actress, and Meg Tilly was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. They didn't win. The movie itself is filled with plot holes and some really bad acting by some other people who were in it. This isn't one of those, it's so bad it's fun to watch. Just avoid it. Number 2, Jagged Edge. It's Glenn Close and Jeff Bridges in a courtroom suspense thriller. They said he killed his wife. Did he? Find out in the next 90 minutes. Let's just move on. At number 1, it's one of the best action movies of the 80s. Remember when I said I'd kill you last? I lied. That's right. Of course, it's Commando. When they first started with this one, they didn't want Arnold in that role. They wanted Nick Nolte. Imagine Nick Nolte as Matrix. No. That cut on Arnold Schwarzenegger's forehead throughout most of the filming, that's a real cut. Someone sliced him at the beginning with a knife. They weren't sure that Arnold's heavy accent was going to translate well, so they toyed with the idea of him just being mute, not saying a word for the whole movie. Thankfully, they abandoned that idea because it's loaded with stupid Arnold one-liners that make all of his action flicks just so incredibly enjoyable. Commando ended up being the 7th biggest R-rated draw in 1985. Your friends are all Gen X and 80s kids too, right? Share this video with them. It's Tuesday night in early October 1985. What are you watching on television? At 8 o'clock on ABC, we had Who's the Boss? The way they present these shows in other countries can be pretty funny. In France, the show is called Madame is Served, and in Italy, it's called Super Housekeeper. There were 2 spin-offs from Who's the Boss, Charmed Life and Living Dolls. Both of them had shorter lifespans than my YouTube channel. At 8:30, it was Growing Pains. It's The Seavers and yet another 80s family sitcom. This was just like Alf, except it was missing the alien and the comedy. Tobey Maguire used to hang around the set a lot in the later years because he's good friends with Leonardo DiCaprio. He never made it on the show, though. Candace Cameron is Kirk's sister. She hung around as well. She ended up being DJ Tanner on Full House. At 8 o'clock on CBS, we had a new show called Hometown. The cast was pretty good. They had Jane Kaczmarek and Daniel Stern. Unfortunately, the writing wasn't very good, and neither was the story. That was canceled 10 episodes in. On ABC, it's The A-Team. It's Hannibal and Face, it's Murdoch, and it's B.A. Baracus. One of my absolute favorite shows when I was a kid. And it's still not bad today. With the amount of bullets that they fired, the amount of automatic weapons that they used, an amount of explosions and car accidents and helicopters falling from the sky. There was only one death in the entire run, and it happened off screen. Also, for you Mandela effect people, B.A. Baracus never says, "I pity the fool." He just calls everybody suckers. And he ain't getting on that damn plane. 9 o'clock, ABC, it's Moonlighting. I mentioned earlier that I did that Michael J. Fox video. I also did one on Bruce Willis, and I covered a bunch of Moonlighting on that. Make sure you find that one in my video list. I'll link it down below too. Bruce Willis was pretty cool in the 80s. It's Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd solving crimes and flirting. The whole television world almost ended up being a very different place. Bruce Willis was trying to get the role on Growing Pains. Imagine if Bruce Willis was the father on Growing Pains and somebody else was playing David Addison. I can't even do that. At 9 p.m. on NBC, we had Riptide. It's another one from Stephen J. Cannell. He created or wrote The A-Team, Hardcastle and McCormick, Greatest American Hero, 21 Jump Street, and this. Riptide only lasted 3 seasons. When it was coming to the end of the 3rd season, the city that they had been filming most of it in decided to have a big night celebrating the show, and then it got canceled. So they had it as an after party instead. CBS mailed it in and gave us a made-for-TV movie at 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock, ABC, Our Family Honor. It's cops and crimes intertwined in New York City. Eli Wallach led the big name cast, but it wasn't enough to get them big name ratings. Like that joke? I wrote that one out. It debuted in September and was canceled before the AFC playoffs. At 10 o'clock on NBC, it was Remington Steele. This is the 4th season of Remington Steele, which really was the last season. They had a 5th season of Remington Steele, but it only had 6 episodes. The ratings got really bad towards the end of this season, so they canceled it. That summer, the reruns really caught fire, and at the same time, Pierce Brosnan was tapped to play James Bond. So interest really got revamped in Remington Steele, and all the letter writing campaigns and people begged them to bring it back. So they brought it back, and nobody watched it, and they canceled it after 6 episodes. 38, Ann and Nancy Wilson, the Hart sisters. They're the Wilson sisters. They're not the Hart sisters. Tina's all jazzed up in this video with her Auntie Entity. At 18, we've got CITY by John Cougar. No, it's not. And also, the 2 Steves from Toto's are from Toto's. All the 3 Toto's. Springsteen released 7 songs off the Born to Run. No, it's not Born to Run. It's Born in the USA. As I mentioned before, I get the Michael J. Why do I need 2 thumbs for Michael J. Fox? The way the titles are presented in foreign lands, it's... Who says foreign lands? They had a 5th season of Remington Steele, but it only had 6 episodes. Did I say Remington Steele? That's it for October of 1985. Click all the buttons you're supposed to click, and I'll see you soon. Hey, what do you think of my super cool Centipede shirt? I got it at 80stees.com. You can get one too and save 30% by using the code I love the 80s. If you get this one, send me a picture.